Well, welcome everyone to another Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Kind of a special episode today. We'll probably post it on the Best Made Weddings feed too. We have the team behind Seattle Tiny Weddings. I'm taking part in this as well as a video streaming partner for that, doing a couple different dates, these smaller kind of elopements, really kind of getting a one-stop shop, if you will, if you're a couple that's looking to, find something that works, save a little bit of money and kind of get all your vendors taken care of. So I have the team here. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and then we'll get into kind of, who you guys are, what is Seattle Tiny Weddings, kind of the whole shebang. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves, give us a little background about who you are.
Cool. I'm Sara and I am co-owner of Wander Event Rentals and Seattle Tiny Wedding. And I don't know really what to say other than that.
I'm Cara. We co-own, like she said, Wander Event Rentals, a creative agency with a large collection of specialty rentals. We're launching this new offering of Seattle Tiny Weddings, which we're super excited about that you're also a part of. So yeah, we got our start in buying and selling vintage and handmade goods at larger markets across the Northwest. Transitioned pretty quickly into rentals, specialty rentals, and kind of just hit the ground running. There was definitely a market for that in the Northwest, Seattle area specifically, working in corporate. But obviously a lot of that is no longer happening, at least not for a while. So we just decided to offer the Seattle Tiny Weddings as this sort of moment of definitely COVID safe. Everything's a little bit smaller. It just seems like people are so excited about just having this opportunity to sort of just hand it over and have it taken care of. They've had enough to deal with in the last year. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's something that we've talked about, and I've had a lot of elopements lately. And I don't know how I'm going to handle going back to like that, 10, 12 hour a day. Just because it's so nice being able to, downsize, have everything be a little more focused, and especially in the Seattle Tiny Weddings case where a lot of that's taken care of for you as well. But I do mean that I feel like the time that we've spent with our couples lately in these smaller elopement settings, it feels like their time is much more well spent just without a lot of that stress. What do you guys... I guess in terms of just thoughts behind that, first of all, and then we can move on.
Yeah, I feel like, COVID has created this time frame of, what is the most important thing to you, and so that's sort of where we start. Honestly, it always have started. Is it the food? Is it the music? Maybe it's the decor. I hope it's the decor. We have a lot of decor, but we call it, a lot of times we call it the vibe, and in the Pacific Northwest, we're a little more casual, but we like a nice, elevated experience. And I think that's the word experience, less about traditions and these things we have to do. What do you want to do? Do you want to have an oyster bar on the beach? Let's do that, and we'll figure that out. So I think that's something that's going to stay. It's not going to go away after COVID. And I think that's great.
Yeah. And I think what it's done is it really kind of took away all the extra stuff that people felt like they had to do in a wedding. So to please mom or your aunts or whomever it may be, the things that they felt kind of stuck to me, just put aside, and now we can really do what we want to do and what's important. And so it's simple. It's much more simple.
Yeah,
right?
I
and then with Seattle Tiny Wedding.
Oh, so
sorry,
no,
go ahead.
I just said, yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, I think the Zoom was like in there for a second. I said, no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And with Seattle Tiny Weddings, what's unique about that is it's done. It's literally add to the cart, show up. It's definitely for the couple who just isn't that invested in making the decisions. They take a long time to make all these decisions and to make them cohesively and to have the day run smoothly. And maybe they don't want, 200 people in a more formal situation. Maybe they're a little shy. Maybe they're too busy to plan a wedding. This is a high style, highly produced event. Literally, like we said, click add to your cart. You show up, you can then take your tiny wedding party and go to dinner, go back home, have a catered dinner. And obviously we work with our couples to help facilitate some of those needs as well. So
Well, and I think definitely being able to, and I guess we can kind of define what this is. So you guys there's going to be multiple dates set up, and we have those in venues. And then couples are able to pick a time slot, throughout the day. Vendors taking care of, photography, streaming. Why don't you guys list maybe what all comes in that, and then we can get into some like benefits, kind of throughout that process. So, Sarah, what? Well, I guess before we even get into that, as a rental company wanting to obviously pivot, as I think a lot of people are right now, right? Figuring out like, okay, what can we, I started this XFL podcast. So like, what was the impetus behind pivoting to this and starting this?
Well, that's a great question. So last summer, just coming out of the initial like, whoa, we're shut down and things are totally different, we started working with our clients on doing larger rental orders and really helping them plan out their backyard off-grid venues. So like if they're getting married in a national park or grandma's lake property, we were coming in and really working with them to get their whole event planned out rental wise. So we're bringing in bathrooms, lighting, generators, all of that stuff, more than just the decor, which we had done previously. And we quickly realized that there's a lot of planning that needs to happen. So we're helping them actually lay out what rentals they need, but then they needed a planner to come in and really execute it all. And so we were finding that was missing in what we were offering, and our clients were asking us to do that. And Cara and I quickly are like, we're not wedding planners. We don't do that. So we started having this conversation. We should bring on a wedding planner because this is something our clients are asking us for. It's something that would really seamlessly fit in with what we're already doing. And so we started having the conversation, like, let's start looking into actually bringing in wedding planning as something we offer under Wander. So, and then Alyssa Lawton formerly of Gather Events, we've been friends with her for a long, long time. We've worked with her a lot. She's been a wedding planner for 10 years in the Seattle area. She was in the right place at the right time. We just kind of came together, and she came on our team with us in January. So that was really the start of this. And then it was like, okay, so how do we launch planning under Wander? What does that look like? And we found this idea of the tiny wedding. And it's being done in other cities. So it's not like something new that we invented. We know some people who are doing it in Dallas and Minneapolis and Birmingham. So we knew that this concept was successfully happening in other cities. So we really started looking into it. And it's like, this could be our little niche in the planning market. So and a way to offer another type of service to clients that maybe they don't need the huge, big rental order because they're not doing a big 200-person wedding in the backyard. We can offer that planning services to that person who's ready to just click and buy.
Perfect. So and obviously great, pivots across the board, so you guys are focused on this now. So now I want to get into, what we have going on. So we have the dates, we have venues. So currently right now, I went on the site, it looks great. I know that we've been sending off everything to the vendors and whatever too. So walk me through, what are you guys envisioning so far and what do we have going on?
So we're super excited. We have 4 dates on the calendar for 2021. And basically what it is, it's a whole wedding. So a beautiful ceremony backdrop, all of your rentals, your venue, your photographers included, your live streaming, your personal flowers, cake and champagne, the officiant, everything you need to have a wedding is included. And it's done on a big scale. All of the vendors and the venues that we brought in are professionals that work at a very high level. So you're getting a very quality product. And you basically get to split that with 4 to 5 different couples. So instead of having a $50,000, $60,000 wedding, you get to split that 4 or 5 ways. So you save on the cost, but you still get all of the things that come with that wedding, like the florals and the cake and champagne and all that fun stuff.
Yes. And so what venues do we have so far that we're working with?
June 12th is Mad Art Studio in the South Lake Union neighborhood of Seattle. It is, the design for that one is really bright, poppy colors, like geometric shapes. You really try to play off the artist studio. Typically what is in the Mad Art space is actual large scale exhibits from local artists. And so, and then between exhibits, they'll rent it out as an event space. So we're really trying to play up the artist theme there and bring in like lots of bright, fun colors and geometric shapes. We've got a huge fabric installation that's going to be going in, things like that. So it'll be kind of dramatic and fun and very spring in Seattle. So we're really excited about that one. And we have 4 spots still available for that. And then we've got Axis on August 28th, Axis Pioneer Square. So that's in Pioneer Square. That's a really fun venue, big brick walls, huge brick arches, another dramatic kind of industrial, historical space in downtown Seattle. That one, you want to talk a little bit about the design for that one?
Very romantic, but modern, very ethereal. One thing that's great about the Seattle Tiny Weddings is that at some of these iconic venues, the food and bev minimum is pretty high. And so doing a tiny wedding, you can still get into these venues at a much lower price. So Access Pioneer Square downtown, beautiful venue, like she said, lots of different options. Beautiful, ethereal, very romantic, like I said. Next, we have Almquist, which is going to be a little more fall vibes, as we like to say, kind of a later summer, still really beautiful. We've got Colibri Blooms going to do a giant floral installation. That's going to be in their greenhouse, which is a great space. Mm-hmm. That is going to be, remind me the date on that, Sarah.
That one is September 25th.
Yeah. Table Catering, that's their venue space there. Immaculate food. So good. Mm-hmm. Won't disappoint. Extended reception, probably candlelight. As we move into these darker months, we're going to have to incorporate some lighting, definitely some candles. Then we move to Olympic Ballroom, another iconic, beautiful venue.
Olympic, I call it Olympic Ballroom too, but it's not. I always call it Olympic Ballroom. It is the Olympic Rooftop Pavilion. Yeah. So that is a really cool one because it is actual rooftop with a view of Seattle. So and it's in November, so it's going to be darker. Those later spots, that 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock spot is going to be like very dark. And the design on that one is much more upscale, sort of a black tie situation. Although you can be as casual, the couples can do whatever they want. But the design itself will be a little more like lots of blacks and creams and a little more kind of a black tie vibe.
P&W black tie.
Yeah, P&W black tie. We don't do anything really black tie. It's all pretty casual, but it's a little more elevated for us. So that's going to be a fun one.
Really fun things planned floral wise for that space. Possibly a hanging installation, ceremony in the round. Really pushing our design skills outside the box if we can in these spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's this all sounds great. And this is, and I speak candidly about this, right? Because I have no skin in it. Obviously to come, help and perform. But just as a outside observer on this, and I know we talked about this, when we were kind of coming on board. What I like the most about this is a lot of times with these, the where you're getting kind of the package deal or whatever, it's like some random venue or it's on like a Tuesday, or it's a lot of these things that feel discounty, right? Where these are stunning venues like Access Pioneer Square. We've been there half a dozen times, stunning venues. And the same with the Olympic Rooftop Pavilion, fantastic with Hotel Ballard. I've been through Mad Art. I haven't filmed there. And then same with Almquist, but it's prime dates, it's prime venues, and it is things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get into otherwise, right? Because like Access Pioneer Square is a very expensive venue, right? And so I love the idea, like you said, of sharing that cost. And then from your vendors' perspectives too, for the streaming services, that might not be something that's cost accessible for every couple. But if we're able to set up and be there all day and provide that service, it's something where I think you're just getting a lot more than the sum of the parts. And especially with the vendors that you brought on with photography and florals and things like that, it's like you're getting these top tier, and me, I don't joke, but as a vendor, but you're getting these top tier vendors and venues, honestly, for a fraction of what that would be normally to do that. And as someone that, did get married, is married, went through the whole, spending all that money. I know how expensive these, Seattle weddings are, right? And it is cost prohibitive sometimes to be able to do the things that you want. So I think there's a lot of positives about that.
Yeah,
we do too.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big consideration. All of the dates are Saturdays. That was really important to us. Not to say that in the future, if we add on more dates, maybe we'll add a Sunday, who knows, but all of these dates that we have on the calendar right now are Saturdays. The vendor teams are top notch. And we have worked our deals and our connections and to get these affordable for couples. But you are really getting a big bang for your buck with the teams and the venues and the actual, what it's going to, at the end of the day, what you're going to receive from this and what you get to enjoy with your family and friends, is worth every penny.
Yeah, it's really and I not obviously right now with everything, but I used to do a lot of stylized shoots, and it was kind of the same idea. And we would get these couples, or whether they were couples or friends or whatever, and you go, man, you have all these people come in and set up all this stuff, and then they're able to come and get the best photos in the world, right? In this world where, how would we ever put this wedding together, right? Normally it would just cost a fortune. And it's the same thing here where it's and I know that we've talked to you about, doing maybe some styled shoots in the space as well, but it really is each of these couples is coming through and getting their own stylized shoot that they didn't really have to pay all the way for and be involved in, the 6 months of planning that it would be to put these things together. I mean, is that kind of, obviously you guys have done shoots and stuff like that too. I mean, the work that goes into it that the couples aren't going to have to deal with now. I mean, talk about that.
Right. Well, we're not limited on budget and design the way we would be if we were designing just one individual wedding, right? We can really take and maximize our collection and work within the budget based on the space and based on the venue and the team, what we can do with that and where we can maximize that. So I think really you get that Pinterest worthy moment, like you said, without the price.
In terms of the vendor teams, I know that I'm consistent for the streaming through. Is there a mix and match throughout the other dates, or how is that working for the couples? And I know obviously all of this will be on the site, too, for the couples to book through. But I mean, talk me through, is each team built individually, or is it built kind of over the dates?
It's built individually. So you're on all of our dates. Definitely. But most of the vendors are individual per the date. A lot of these vendors are in very high demand. Yep. So it, for you in particular, it was kind of crazy that the dates worked out that we could get you because most of, you can't get that particular photographer all 4 dates in 2021. It was sort of like that throughout. So, and we also chose the vendor teams based on the venue too. So, for instance, the photographer that we chose for Almquist, it's a greenhouse. It's a really light and bright venue. And we chose a photographer that really excels in that environment. And she's a very high-end photographer. We got her, it's great that she's able to do this with us for the price that we're offering that particular tiny wedding at, and she's just going to blow it out. She's the perfect photographer for that particular venue. And it was kind of like that throughout, where it's who's really going to fit best, who's available, who's got the date available, who's the best fit. We work with a ton. We've been in the wedding industry for 5 years. So we've worked with so many different wonderful vendors. So we really kind of in our back pocket know a lot of people that we can be like, oh, they're going to be great at this particular, for this design, for this venue, for this time of year, and we can approach them and and get them on board. So it is definitely custom per event.
Well, and I was just, kind of flipping through the vendor list here. Like you said, at Access Pioneer Square, you have Urban Light Studios, right? And they're involved in that space. And so they definitely know, like you said, how to best just exist in that space and capture it. And then, Courtney Bolden Photography is, I've worked with Courtney for 6 years, right? These are people that are, like I said, I do feel like sometimes with the mini, whatever you want to call them, you are getting some of these like discount vendors, right? And it's really not. And as someone that's worked with most of these vendors, I can speak to that. And so I think that is something that comes into place too, is it's, Courtney is a very expensive photographer, right? And so to be able to get that for her, I think is a win-win for everybody. I think that there's a lot of positives for this.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Yeah. So just, shrinking it down, like just a cake and champagne, having the options like that versus, at a catered dinner allows you to then have that moment on that budget, right? You can then have that photographer, right? So, we're super excited about it. We're really excited to have you on board. I think live streaming is amazing and it's never going to go away. We're going to live stream all the time. Yeah. Why are we doing 300-person weddings? Like, let's do 50 and live stream.
Yeah, it is interesting now, because if you think that all this occurred a year ago and all the work that I put in like back March and April, and now it's, it's like that long con, that pays off. Now, it's a long game with that. But no, I think that they definitely being able to, that's the thing, right? People want to elope and you want to have this, save space and people and money, but then it's how do I get everybody involved with that? And just to I tell that to every couple, whether they book me or not for the live stream, that because we're on these private YouTube links, but the people that are watching are able to leave comments and stuff, right? And the appreciation for the guests that the couples, spent the time and the money to make sure that people are involved in that way is very much appreciated. And I say that like whether people book me or someone else to do it, like people really appreciate you taking the time to do the live stream and spending that money that you didn't have to. And you would be amazed at the comments that we get. And it all saves that so the couples can go back and see it. But it is a cool thing. And they're like, man, they really spend. And someone, me or whoever, like put in all the time to set everything up to do it. They really do appreciate that. So,
and that's one thing I really try to. I will say that the couples that we've talked to and that we've that have purchased the tiny wedding, they all want the live stream. That is a huge part of what they are getting out of this and they want out of it. So that's really exciting. And another aspect of that is, and I lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
On it, but the live stream is a really cool, like everybody's into it. Everybody's like that. This is an important part of this experience, is being able to share that with a bigger, with all of your friends and family, and then have that core group with you, so that the day is really important and that time is really important. And so it's a way to include everyone in that day.
And that YouTube link then, like you said, becomes a digital guest book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guests can leave comments. I love that.
Yeah, it's been a really good, obviously there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the way that we do it has been really nice for couples to be able to go back and see all that. Sarah, I wanted to ask you were talking about, people being excited for the live streams, but now that you guys, because I know that this has been, a brain trust for a while, you guys working on putting this together, figuring out, the vendors and all that. Now that you guys are selling the spots, marketing, talking to the couples, talk about that reaction that you're getting from perspective, people and people that are booking about, what do they think about the product and the idea that you guys are doing?
They are super excited about it. What is happening, what we found is this idea, people, like I said, have been doing it for the last year in other cities. And it was definitely a COVID pivot for them. But this is when we were kind of like exploring this idea and talking to other people who are doing it, the one thing that came out over and over was that the couple that's actually purchasing these packages, they're not COVID couples. They wanted something like this anyway. And so this isn't a pivot for them to have to do something like this because of COVID. This is exactly what they wanted. So They are professionals. They're super busy. They don't want to plan a wedding. They don't want to make all of those decisions, sign all of the contracts, interview all of the vendors. That, to them, they do not have time for that. They don't want it. They want something beautiful. They want something professionally executed and amazing. They don't have to do the work. So it's been an interesting thing, and discovering these couples and they're so excited when they find this product and they learn about it, that it's exactly what they wanted. And they didn't, this is a new thing in Seattle, so people don't know it exists. So when they find out about it, they're so happy to have found it. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, this is perfect, done. They don't take a long time to make the decision.
Yeah, that was my question, and you might not. This is just me prognosticating here, but are you finding the couples that seem more excited are a little bit older? Like I'm kind of like mid-30s, where I think Reed at 26 was maybe a little bit more excited to plan a wedding myself and do the year and a half. Dorothy and I were engaged for 14 months, right, to plan our wedding, where Reed right now would very much like take one of those in a heartbeat. Are you guys finding that in terms of the ages? I'm just curious.
The ages are definitely 30s for sure. They're not super young. Nobody we've talked to is super young yet. So yeah, I think so. I'm the same. I've planned a wedding. I've done it. So now I know this is a way better deal. And this is exactly what I would do if I were to do it again. So I don't know if it's more that of just having gone through the experience and knowing how much work it is and how much stress it is, and being able to just quite literally just show up on your wedding day, not having had to go through all of that. What a wonderful thing that would be now that we've done it. Right. So, but yeah, so far it's definitely people in their 30s that we've talked to, but
most of them are making it, taking, like I said, the party and moving it elsewhere, either before or after, right? And we have options of adding on additional planning hours to help facilitate that as well, too, for our couples. But, maybe you're going to do Olympic rooftop and then you're going to move to Hotel Ballard, something like that. We can work with different shuttle companies to help you get transportation, things like that. So we've got all kinds of different PDFs cooked up to send you to help, make the whole weekend really spectacular.
If you want it.
Yeah.
Like if you want to add a little more, make it a little longer experience, there's lots of different ways to do that. And we've got all the ideas. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that idea of doing these, like I said, it was like 2 weeks ago, they did an elopement at Cary Park, it was just them, one on each side. And then they just were going to go to a nice dinner, right? And I thought, man, again, this is probably a little older Reed talking, but how nice would that be and not have to do, all these other things. And I think, like you said, building those things, into the weekend, being able to stay at Hotel Ballard, being able to stay in South Lake Union somewhere, right, and do that and just show up at your wedding, I think is a really, it feels very Seattle to me anyway, just in terms of kind of the demographic that we have here. But it seems like something that I think is going to become more and more just with everything, with time, with planning, with money, with people wanting to save for houses and things. And I don't want to spend $30,000 on my wedding. I want to, we want to do these other things or travel or whatever. So I think it's an exciting time. And like you said, it's not necessarily a COVID pivot. These are couples that were attracted to that anyway, which I think is important, because I do think that we get that now, like, oh, they're eloping. Like, well, when was going to be your big wedding? And when was going to be your whatever? I mean, on our Best Made Weddings podcast, we've talked about that for months, right? Like, what is a real wedding? And is something smaller that's more intimate and thoughtful? Is that any less, valuable? I mean, we've had philosophical discussions about that, right? And I think that it's just important to note that, that people have different decisions for everything, and that these aren't necessarily pivots for the couple. It could be something very intentional. So.
Right.
Absolutely. Exactly. And it allows for more, it's a capacity thing. So instead of planning for 200 people one day and it's all got to happen in one day, you can make it a whole weekend, which is most of the clients that we work with really want an experience for their guests. So they would rather, whittle it down to 30 of their core people and give them an experience to remember. So maybe that starts on Friday night, and then the wedding is Saturday, and then a brunch on Sunday. And this type of wedding really allows for the room to create that for your friends and family.
I love that. I love the rethinking kind of the timeline and the itinerary that way. That I do think we got so locked down into this, it's noon to 10, and you're going to show up at 10 a.m. and you're going to do your hair, and then you're going to do, and then shuttle is picking you up at 10 o'clock at night, or, whatever these, like, you could put a wedding timeline together in your head. Right. And like, I think that it is so cool now to be able to rethink that. And who wouldn't love a wedding weekend? And like I said, especially where a lot of these venues are in places where it's very accessible to, spend the night, either at the venue or nearby. I think it's really cool. That was one of the coolest things. We years ago had a wedding out in Lake Chelan, and it was just like an Airbnb, but it was like a venue. And it was the same thing. Like, the family and all of them just hung out there the whole weekend. And I thought, man, how cool is that? Okay, we're done. Like, you got to go home now. We'll see you. I mean, Dorothy and I, we got locked. We got married at Salty's. We got locked into our venue because they were closed. Like, the Uber driver was outside, and we were like, because it's okay, you got to go home now, where it would be so nice to be able to really live and breathe out that time with all your, friends and family. So.
Yep. And it can be what you want it to be. Like, there's just and this is kind of a fun thing that's come out of COVID with all the elopements and the smaller weddings, is that the creativity of what people are choosing to do with their wedding budgets and their time and the people that they want around them. It's really amazing. Like, we've seen just incredible mountaintop elopements, with 4 people and things like that, where it's just like, wow, what an incredible thing. You've created a memory that you will have forever. And it wasn't this, like you said, that you've got the venue from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. and it's all got to be done there. And there's really little wiggle room with how it can be done. I think the COVID has just sort of like ripped the Band-Aid off. And now there's just like so many ideas, so many ways to do it. And there's no right or wrong. And it's sort of given us all permission, even those of us in the wedding industry, to really think outside the box and do something different.
Absolutely. I had a couple other logistical things. So couples will arrive ready to go, right? Yes. So hair and makeup is offsite. So they would, and you could find a salon, or,
we have recommendations too for people to bring in that we've worked with before and love. So we can help, like, give you names and stuff if you need it.
Perfect. And so, And then in terms of, you have the couple, and then what's the guest, how are we handling guest counts for the different, and is it different per venue or not?
They're all the same. It's 30 guests are included in the package. So if you go to our website, you're going to see a price for the package, and they're each individually priced because it's based on the venue and the vendor team. So you'll see the price, and that includes 30 guests, 30 plus the couple. So you can't, some of the venues that are larger, we can add on 20 guests. So like Axis is one, Mad Art, and Olympic, we can add on more guests up to 50, but it's capped at 50.
So, I mean, it's not, I mean, and that's the funny thing about it. I mean, it's really not, I mean, we call it a tiny wedding, and it's great branding, right? I love that. But it isn't, I mean, we had 100 people. I mean, it's not like that. It's not that crazy of like, well, it's you and, 4 people or whatever, I mean, it feels like there's tons of flexibility there for whatever couples would want to be able to, have a bridal party or do whatever they need to do that way to accommodate all of that. It's not like, well, it's just you two and the photographer or whatever it is. With a lot of elopements that we do, it's like we're signing the marriage certificate or whatever as a vendor. Where it is more of a wedding, even then an elopement, really, to be fair.
Right. And there's options to add on different services too through our different partners. So if you wanted to take the 11 a.m. spot at one of the venues and add on a bagel bar, a specialty cocktail, we can work with you to do that through the vendors. So there's ways to personalize it and beef it up if you want. But the bones are already there that are going to be amazing, whether you decide to kind of add more to that or take it elsewhere.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'm just flipping. I mean, the site's great. It's got all the information. I mean, it's really, easy to go on and kind of see what all you're going to have going, whichever venue or anything else. Is there anything else, logistics or specifics that I didn't ask about that we wanted to make sure that we touched on? I mean, obviously, SeattleTinyWedding.com, and we'll plug the site and everything. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure people took away from, what you guys are offering or ideas or anything else?
Yeah, I think it's probably really great to explain the timeline of the day, because this is a question we get all the time. So, like you had mentioned, show up ready to go. You can show up 15 minutes before your ceremony time. Ceremony is 15 minutes long. Then a 45-minute reception with cake and champagne. And then if you want to add on bagels or a charcuterie board or something like that, that's 45 minutes long. And then you get a 30-minute couples photo session. And that can be couple and family, whoever you want in your wedding portraits. But the guests start to depart after that 45-minute reception, and you get a 30-minute dedicated photo time. You can go outside. I know there's some really great shots of the Space Needle if you want that in your background. Post Alley at Axis is a really amazing, photo spot. So, and all of our photographers are familiar with the area, so they'll be able to suggest different spots. So you really get those incredible photos. And then, so that's the timeline: 15-minute ceremony, 45-minute reception, 30-minute couples photo session. And then depart. And the party can continue. If you want, you could go home and get in some sweats, whatever you want.
And at each venue is the option for the last spot to add on an extended reception, where then we can get a little more creative. For example, Table Catering at Almquist is going to do a seated dinner then.
And that, if you add that last spot on, it's 2 hours additional, then we can play with your timeline. Maybe you want a longer ceremony, or have some music options for a little bit of dancing or something. Another thing to mention is COVID is still here. We're still watching the numbers very closely. These are designed specifically to fit within COVID guidelines. So we can shift on a dime. Like right now we have the Mad Art on June 12th. King County may be rolling back to phase 2. And no worries, we totally have plan B for phase if we roll back. This wedding will continue. It will go on without a hitch. All of the weddings, we design them at 30 to 50 people so that we have the most chance of being able to execute them with whatever guidelines are in place at the time that it goes on. And we have plan A and plan B and plan C so that we can adjust seamlessly without needing to affect the day too much. Of course, we are following all guidelines. So if masks are required, they will be required. Seating, assigned seating, if that's required, all of that. We'll follow all of that. There's no need to really stress about it as a couple, because I know that's one thing that people have been really stressed about. Like, if I purchase this, could it get canceled? What's going to happen? And we've really done everything we can to think through all of the scenarios and plan for them so that we're ready to go, whatever happens.
Well, and even just knowing what the guidelines are. I mean, how often do we see online couples post like, what is the rule on this thing? I don't know, and people are saying, why? I don't know. Here's the thing, or here's the link to the PDF, where you're on all that. So they know, like, whatever it is, we're going to be compliant. I don't have to, again, it's just one less thing. I don't have to, I don't have to know what the rules are. And then the other thing I was going to mention, yes, with the planning, the dates. Yeah, we really need to be planning weddings now, like you said, that can be flexible. I'm booking couples now into next year, and they're like, well, what happens if, I'm like, you got to have a wedding that can be, if it can happen, it's happening, And so, yeah, like obviously being able to scale that, I think is incredibly important, even if you're just planning, a non-Seattle Tiny wedding. But yes, having that scaling effect, I think is really smart in terms of the planning that way.
Yeah. And all of our venues, one thing we took into consideration when choosing venues were that we could be at 25% capacity and still go on with 50 people. Mm-hmm. So that was a really big consideration. So just, we've really tried to think through all of what could happen. Of course, who knows? I mean, we've all been through the last year, so we know things could change on a dime, but we've really done our best to make sure that this can go on regardless, and we will follow everything that's in place at the time of the event. And we are doing our homework, and we are very up on all of the current regulations, and prepared to do whatever we need to do to get these couples married. So.
The one last thing I wanted to point out, just from a creative standpoint, when you were talking about the venues and the photography, having just where all the venues are, like you said, where there's outdoor space and stuff as well. I just think it's important to know that you do have the option for lots of flexibility aesthetically, right? Like, let's say I want to get married at Access Pioneer Square, but like, I don't want to have all my photos be brick or whatever. You can go outside and get, downtown Seattle shots or whatever. I mean, there's just the flexibility there where I think, you don't have to feel like, oh, I'm getting the same photos as somebody else, or like we're able to have our own say in that. Cause I know like Courtney and people, it'll feel you could do the same set of photos, in 16 different directions at the same place and have it look totally different. So I just think from a creative, being able to utilize the venues and then the outdoor space where I know all these are, endless possibilities for that time for, family and couples portraits too.
Yep.
Yeah. It's really about the experience, right?
Yes.
Like, it's easy. We want to make it easy, simple, chic, amazing.
You're going to get amazing photos.
Yeah. It's kind of like I did the big fake wedding a couple years ago, and it feels like that a little bit. And I can't even remember what the story was with that, where it was like a couple that was married and then they were like renewing their vows. Like, I think they had kids at that point, and so the kids were part of it, but it was the same kind of thing. Like, you had these world-class vendors and then they just walked in and it's like, man, look at this awesome thing that we get to do that we could never have put together ourselves. It's, I think it's cool.
That is a good thing to mention too, is vow renewal. This feels like a perfect opportunity for that as well. Mm-hmm. Just put it in the cart, show up, instant vow renewal.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, this has been good. It's been fun. I think it's a good idea. I think it was a good idea when it was pitched. I think talking through it and seeing the vendor list and anything. Anything else you wanted to make sure we touched on today?
So a lot of the decisions are made for you. You just mentioned the officiant or the vow renewal, and that made me think the officiant will work with you, with each couple, to personalize the ceremony. So that's an important factor. I think it's not going to be cookie cutter. They actually, you actually meet with them ahead of time and really get a personal. So whether you're doing your own vows, or they help you with that, whatever it is, it's professional officiants that will work with you to get it so it's a personal, special ceremony. And you also have the option to bring your own officiant. So if you know somebody, that's totally fine to bring your own officiant. So
I love it. I like having the flexibility within kind of the parameters of being able to have a lot of things provided. I think that's a cool experience.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're gonna kill it. We're gonna do good. SeattleTinyWedding.com. Any other Instagram, everything's all the same, right? And then obviously, for your website as well, where would you have them go just for Wander event too?
Rentwander.com is the rentals website. We've got, all the velvet sofas and the lanterns and the backdrops and all that cool stuff that really take your event over the top. So we've got that too.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much. I think this will be fun. And I think, if nothing else, I think listening to this can, partaking in this or just getting ideas for anything else, I think is great. And I think that this is a fun idea and outside the box. And I think certainly something that I see sticking around here, like you said, for couples that just don't really want to deal with all the other stuff. So,
right. Yeah. Thanks so much, Reed.
Thanks again. Well, this was a get to know your wedding pro kind of pseudo, chat about things. So yeah, we'll be back. If you're a wedding vendor interested in coming on the podcast, you can go to bestmadevideos.com/podcast guest, and we'll have to get you guys on again and do a full out flushed, Wander event rentals. We'll do all that too. So that'll be fun. Thank you guys again.
Story of like lugging antiques into like fairgrounds and stuff because there's some interesting event stories. They're all around not weddings, but like shows, vintage markets. it's a whole other world. So yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah. When you guys we're not building all these, what's going to end up being like, 25 weddings or whatever. When we guys aren't busy planning all those, we'll have you guys come back in the studio and we'll do one about it. That sounds great. Thank you guys so much again.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.